very long fight altogether. That's what I
Tell you what,
want.
maybe if SRG wins M6, you can shave your head. Right?
If they win M6, M7,
Yeah.
Smart
You gotta hold yourself to that now if you're gonna go that hard. Anyway.
Smart Omega versus Fnatic Onyx. That is what we want to look at for now, okay? Game number 1. We've got the banning stage that is just going to go all the way through now. The banning phase, you know, Juicin, meta or not? Are we going to be expecting the Juicin ban here?
I think it comes down to a situation where how they are positioning themselves in the current group stages, right? Like how badly do they want to secure their slots and then make it to the playoffs, right? Like teams, you know, there are teams that they're pretty much already comfortable here. In this case, Liquid is one of those teams here. They can look to try and experiment a little bit more because there's still not enough data on whether or not how this Juicin is supposed to be played. So I feel like a lot of teams are still fresh to this idea. There are good ways, there are bad ways. I think Chantel brought a very good point. High risk, medium reward.
High risk, medium reward. But there is definitely...
Huh? I'm sorry?
Wait a minute.
What? Veil? Is this like an Ukir pick or something that we're not aware of?
Not that I know of. Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Okay.
From production, they are gonna be restarting the draft. Okay, so
Okay,
what
they made a mistake.
Yeah, they made a small little mistake, a little bit of a boo-boo. But this is the match that I'm looking out for. And there's a reason why I talked about Juicin specifically for this match. Because Ukir has piloted the Juicin twice, and with a 50% win rate. Sans piloted the Juicin once, with a 100% win rate. These two teams are one of the top 3 teams, right, that actually managed to make Juicin work.
If you ask me personally, since Omega's on the blue side, Onyx on the red side, normally Onyx would be the ones that need to ban Juicin. I personally don't think they have to ban Juicin.
I personally don't think that they will need
If
to.
Omega first picks Juicin, I feel like it's not a good idea.
It's not a good idea.
Yeah.
Elaborate.
Because like we know that Juicin is a hero that really requires proper team play, and you could say that on paper it works well with Omega because of their playstyle, but I do also feel like Onyx is going to take advantage of that to immediately go for more early gameplay to make sure it doesn't work. And I'm pretty sure that Onyx are perfectly happy with this because if Omega doesn't first pick the Juicin, Sans has so far been one of the most consistent players with it.
I think I can see where you're getting at as well here, but I heard a little bit of rumor here. If I'm not mistaken, there is going to be an upcoming patch that's going to be coming in tomorrow or the day after during playoffs as well. So I think
not again.
That's the problem, right? There has been a lot of speculation where Juicin can be played on the roam. So far, we have not seen a single Juicin roam yet. But why I bring this up is because I'm not sure it's confirmed yet, but the patch notes for Juicin is pretty much 4% increased damage to all spells and minus 12%
Kuda reduction.
damage taken.
Damage taken. Wait. In overall sense or when
Overall
she's activating? So it doesn't matter if she's in the Crimson
Yeah, but
Beacon.
that's the rumor, but we have to read the official patch notes yet. But so far, some of the patch notes that I've seen so far, it's kind of leaning towards that direction. So it might be potentially a roam Juicin, which I don't know if they want to risk experimenting it now, but yeah, it's something to kind of take note of when heading towards playoffs.
So we could be able to see more Juicin in the playoffs. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes, definitely, 100%. It's either that or top ban.
Right, okay. Because now one of the main problems that we are experiencing with Juicin is the fact that as a mage, she's just not dishing out enough damage. The only thing that we are seeing out of a Juicin mid is the utility of being able to be really harassing the opponents. But this is not exactly a very conventional mage role that we are looking out for from Juicin, even when Juicin is taking the middle lane, right? And we have touched onto this many times. So I'm just gonna very briefly say this again. Whenever you pick a Juicin in the middle lane, you would require a roamer that can clear waves fast enough in the middle lane. And very likely, they would require to pick up Concussive Blast.
Yeah, I think when it comes to that as well, Juicin kind of reminds me of the playstyle similar to Alice as well.
Alice?
But it's like, it's not as tanky and sustainable as Alice, but it has the annoying factor of how an Esmeralda would do to you in your face. So I feel like Jusin is in a situation where it's half of everything, but it's just not there yet.
Okay.
No, she just fulfills a different niche, basically. Like, yeah, on paper, Zusin is very similar to Esme and Alice because they're all mages that are tanky and take a lot of damage. But the way you play them is a bit different.
Exactly.
Because Alice and Esme get in your face. Zusin's a bit more of someone that'll be annoying, but like a little bit of a distance. Like, she wants to control you. She wants to make sure she's zoning you out correctly. And that's where we see the effectiveness of the hero.
Now we're gonna take a sideline here because of the technical pause. Let's take a look at the team head-to-head between Smart Omega and Fnatic Onyx. Thus far, Fnatic Onyx definitely have got way more kills to their name, but it's not necessarily that much. It's just a little bit of a shy bit of 3 less from the side of Smart Omega. But when it comes down to the team average damage dealt, they are actually pretty much neck and neck. It's kind of bleeding blue and red in the same rate. While the average GPM, Fnatic Onyx, they do have a tad bit higher. In fact, 80 GPM higher than Smart Omega, but it doesn't necessarily tell us the full story, does it?
Yeah, based on these stats as well here, in terms of damage dealt is kind of acceptable. You can kind of spam spells throughout the entirety of the game here. But what I do recall is that almost every single game that Smart Omega has played has pretty much reached to a stage where everybody is level 15 to a certain point.
End game scenario.
Yeah. One of their longest games was like 24 minutes, 23 minutes-ish.
26, I think.
Yeah, 26 at one point as well. So almost every single game has been so drawn out to a point where it causes their GPM to kind of fluctuate a little bit lower. So again, Smart Omega, they have been leaning on towards just buying time, delaying for the later stage of the game, and then hope that Jome is going to be the key winning factor for the team.
I think the question will always come down to the fact where will Smart Omega be able to drag games long enough? How good are they in the early and the mid stages to be able to play in the end game? As what we have saw from Smart Omega versus RSGPH before, that is definitely the case. But here in the detailed team statistics, we are able to tell a little bit more about their win rate, which unfortunately is kind of abysmal coming in from the master of all trades, right? 16.67% onto the blue side, and the same thing actually onto the red side.
These stats really do kind of propagate what we've been talking about with Smart Omega, where they do feel too safe as a team, and in some cases kind of a bit too scared to make the first move. You see their game durations really long. They have 0% first blood and first turret rate, and not exactly the best stats otherwise as well, only getting 1 out of 3 turtles and lords. And it's very clear to me that the lack of aggression, the lack of proactiveness from this team is what is contributing a lot to their downfall. Jome is carrying a lot of weight on his own. The rest of the team really needs to be able to back him up on that.
Agreed. Just now, fastest time 11 minutes, but average is 15 minutes. It just shows you how they kind of lean on towards the late game a little bit too much here. And I think he did mention as well, early objective 33% means that they pretty much just want to buy time, play safe, and I think you brought up a very, very important statement, and that is too scared to make a play. And in this case, not making any moves is a mistake because of the fact that they're just afraid of making mistakes.
Before the game even started, when we are looking at the Mara's interview to Smart Omega, Mara did mention about the 2-0 against Fnatic Onyx. It is very important for Smart Omega to be able to get a 2-0 against Fnatic Onyx, especially since it is a lifeline for Fnatic Onyx and kind of to make Fnatic Onyx in a really tough spot. Let's reference back to FCAP versus Rebellion that will be happening at the final day today, because what Omega would want to do is to be able to tie it out with Fnatic Onyx when it comes down to the points. But it's not going to be all that important anymore if FCAP versus Rebellion, sorry, it was the first game of FCAP versus Rebellion. FCAP gotta win a 2-0 against Rebellion, and I think that is a tall order for Rebellion as well. The moment that FCAP wins against Rebellion, that means that the upcoming game of FNOC versus FCAP doesn't mean anything at all, and Smart Omega is automatically relegated.
Yeah, it is going to be tough, but like it or not, they still have to win whatever they can here.
They need a 2-0. It's a tall order.
Even a 2-1 won't work, huh?
True.
2-1 won't work at all.
Unfortunately.
A 2-0 is a must, because especially in the end of today, Smart Omega is actually going to go up against See You Soon. And they are definitely going to come in with the understanding and the expectation that they want to 2-0 See You Soon as well, in order to have a chance against Fnatic Onyx.
Yep. And now speaking of drafts here, Smart Omega, they prioritize the Roger for Joe in this game, but Fnatic Onyx, they do bring in the Julian. So this is something that I'm really curious here. Is Kyrie going to be playing the Julian, or is it going to be Sans?
Sadafa, I want to ask you this. All right, I want to show you this. Fnatic Onyx, actually out of their expectations, they banned the
They
Juicin.
did ban Zusin.
Yeah.
I still, again, feel like it wasn't necessary, but the reason that they went for it was most likely to contest Roger and Moskov, because my initial thought would be ban the Moskov, because that is one of the heroes where Jom can 1v5 with, but it looked like they did contest it instead. Smart Omega went for the Roger, so they get the Moskov and the Julian, and as for Terrence's question, I do feel like it's most likely going to be jungle. Because if you play aggro, we already know that Omega is weak to that.
So what exactly would we want to see when it comes down to a gold lane? Or is it still really up for grabs for Smart Omega? Because, you know, we gotta have to look out for Fnatic Onyx lineup a little bit more.
I think so far, you know, when it comes to this kind of composition, right, you kind of need to balance out on what you want to play around your win condition so far. Smart Omega's draft has always been leaning on towards delaying, buying time, or just S-tier picks, but doesn't have, but the heroes doesn't really synergize with each other that well. So in this case, I feel like Smart Omega, they open up Edith, you know, they kind of want to keep it a bit of the flex here, but it doesn't really tell too much on how they want to take those fights.
Now, Smart Omega, we talked about the fact that we want to see Smart Omega be able to play to the late game. That is their expertise. That is their identity thus far. So grabbing heroes that is relatively good in the mid lane mid game doesn't require too much investments. We're always gonna be good. Wave clear, understandably, is super important as well. But when it comes down to a Valentina from the side of Smart Omega, what do you guys think about this? Because she doesn't really have that good of a wave clear as compared to some of the other mages out there. Yes, she have pretty good lane priority, but she don't really have someone to steal ultimates from for now.
Because, like, in the first place, Valentina as a hero is good enough that you don't really have to rely on stealing ultimates for her to be effective. And she's just kind of a universal pick as well, because what Smart Omega is trying to do here is to keep Edith as a flex, and then for their EXP lane hero especially to have a winning matchup. So they got to go for their mid lane at this point, and Valentina is just the safest way to go for it. But I personally do worry about this approach, because when you go Valentina Edith, it's a very safe opener.
Yeah.
And while Omega has worked well with safe, I'm personally not a big fan of it, because you're not really having a direct identity of what your goal is that game.
So your idea is to risk it for the biscuit.
A little bit more. Like, obviously you don't want to pick a weird hero that just throws you the game, right? But we want to see a little bit more direction from this team. And mind you, again, during the draft, you don't want that. I just want to see something more from Omega, because up until now, a lot of their drafts, like Terrence has mentioned,
questionable,
have been not the most synergistic.
Yeah, and now seeing this draft here for Fnatic Onyx, I'm not sure if they are picking heroes with the intention of being flexible. So far, AP Brand has been Falcon has been the team that has been doing that a little bit more. Sometimes they have Sanji kind of play the Julian mid from time to time, and it really synergizes and works well for them. But in this case, I don't think they're gonna play Cho XP. You know, even though I would like to see those TikTok Chos, which are disgusting with the current patch with the Sky Piercer. But for now, I think it's pretty straightforward for Fnatic Onyx here. It's like you have this Cho to kind of start the fight, get a pick off, and then just one-shot somebody.
Yeah, the Cho doesn't really yell Lutby to me. At this point in time, the Terizla is still relatively open to the lineup of Fnatic Onyx, so I'm not too surprised if that is exactly what Fnatic Onyx would want to go. At least for the first 3 core heroes that Fnatic Onyx has picked out on, they are definitely great when it comes down to pick off, but that could be a secondary win condition, because if we want to look at a Terizla eventual pick from Fnatic Onyx plus this Vexana that has already been picked out, it kind of seems as though Fnatic Onyx will want to fill a role. They want to fill up gaps in every single field, making sure that they have no weaknesses.
What? A Bane?
Ooh,
and a Lolita?
I do actually like the Lolita pick. There's a Moskov on the opposite side, should work very well against him. We've already seen it mess with teams in the past.
Enhanced Scythe as well.
Yeah, so there's good projectiles to bounce off of. Bane has been a little bit hit or miss. He's a good hero when the enemy team has a lot of dive, and in this case, I guess they have Cho, but I'm not a big fan of the choice to go Bey in this game. Hopefully it pays off. As for Onyx, I actually really like the way they've gone for this. They pick Vexana because they want to leave EXP lane to last. Because they know that Lutpi is a more aggressive player compared to Ryota, and if he can win the EXP lane, early game will go very smoothly for them.
A Lapu Lapu is going to be the final pick for the side of Fnatic Onyx. Very interchangeable when it comes down to the heroes within of EXP lane. They just require someone to be able to tank up really good hits and just kind of be durable, be sustainable.
Not gonna lie, I kind of like the idea that Smart Omega kind of brought to the table here. The Bane and Lolita gives a lot of AoE, forces Fnatic Onyx to kind of bob and weave a little bit more. And considering that they've pretty much locked down 4 of their characters here, they don't really have much choice to kind of switch up. So their final pick is pretty much, you know, somebody who's got to be able to tank through the sharks, somebody's going to be able to tank through those Numinon blasts in order to cut the back lines and then kind of make a counter play here. So all in all, both teams pretty much has their own win condition, but definitely I feel like Fnatic Onyx has much more room to work with in terms of split push potential.
I gotta say, this is a very interesting draft from Smart Omega. We will only be able to tell what exactly is going to be their game plan coming in to fight against Fnatic Onyx. I would like to thank Terrence for coming into the panel, and of course, we are going to be jumping into game number 1 between Smart Omega versus Fnatic Onyx.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for joining us here on Stream B. Just like you mentioned, Abstract, this is going to be game 1 of our final day of the group stages, actually. With Smart Omega on the blue, Fnatic Onyx on the red. And I will say, just to start things off, that Omega actually has the easier comp to play on a micro standpoint. Fnatic needs a little bit more finesse because of the way their heroes work. It's a lot of in and out, a lot of skirmishing, but I do feel like their players are capable of doing so.
And of course, one thing that I would want to really take a look at is the fact that gold lane will always be at risk for the side of Roger, especially whenever we are looking at the Julian. You can pretty much expect that the Julian will always want to dip himself into the gold lane as much as possible. And the very fact that Roger got hit by Kyrie that early in the game kinda suggests to me that Jome might not be that used to the timing of a Julian jungle from the opponent side.
And Doryu actually in the areas. Yep, very nice observation there. CW instantly walking back, realizing the timing that this is where the junglers hit level 4. You will likely see a rotation. And Lutpi already notices that there isn't really anything happening down there.
Oh, nice stun coming in from CW, but with Keyboy already jumping in with a nice little stun, as well as the deadly catch. It is going to help them disengage a little bit to get themselves back on track.
This is where Onyx wants to secure Turtle and then immediately try to blitz it down as fast as possible. Quite a number of resources were used by Smart Omega earlier, and they can actually see that Chakdu's a little bit behind on EXP because he went up top to try and assist Jome a little bit more. In which case, they can either blitz the objective or try to play even more aggro to invade the enemy jungle.
A Blitzkrieg may actually sound good for them, but for now, it does seem like Smart Omega doesn't want to contest for this turtle and want to allow Bane to take the orange buff as soon as possible first. Both of the junglers are currently at level 5, and one thing, and the other thing that I want to consider again is the very fact that we are looking at a Roger versus a Moskov scenario, and we all know whenever you put a Roger and a Moskov in the same lane, the Moskov will always be having a field day.
As long as CW positions correctly, then it'll be very difficult for Jome to get on top of him. And Jome is ordinarily okay with this because his goal in this team is usually to try and farm out for a late game. But on a Roger, you do want to be able to get a little bit more pressure going straight away.
Keyboy unfortunately wasn't able to land the Jikundo. Chaknu joins into the back, and there is going to be a nice terrify and a 4-man Numenon block. But unfortunately, the follow-up coming from the side of Smart Omega just doesn't seem to quite connect. As such, the Way of the Dragon connects down onto Ryota, giving Kyrie that kill. But before that, we do have Lutpi that manages to get himself the first blood on top of Vandoryu. But Jome, up in the top lane once again, he tries to go over for the quick little iframe, but that didn't really quite help him get out.
Beautiful rotation timing coming in from Lutpi here. That was actually an insane Numenon blast landing on 4 members, but the Landshaker hit just in time. And because Smart Omega were still a little bit too behind, they weren't actually able to follow up on a beautiful teamfight setup by Chaknu, thereby giving Onyx some additional kills instead. That could have been a really different story if the Lapu Lapu wasn't there in that precise moment.
Eventually, I would say the Smart Omega would want to hold themselves a little bit of a congregation, right? Perhaps get themselves a little bit more engagement onto Fnatic Onyx, especially since we have been really asking for aggression for Smart Omega. But thus far, it kind of seems as though it is all passive gameplay.
Yeah, which I don't really like, because Andoryu went for Sky Piercer first item, which I feel like is a bad idea. You're not doing well enough for that.
We definitely want to see him being able to get kills, but Kyrie is the one that is already in the brushes. In the meantime, it is also going to be the Numenon Blast that manages to connect. They've managed to bring Kyrie all the way down to a low amount of HP, but an enhanced sword allows him to get himself a little bit more damage, but not enough healing to really get out of that. As such, Kyrie goes down. The fight prolongs, and Ryota with the Primal Rev, he's just going to be abandoning the Firelight to hope that he will be able to do enough damage. But Lutfi with the Bravest Warriors, he gets himself right out of that as soon as possible, and Ukir hoping that he will be able to get some of these projectiles to even kill Keyboy, but alas, it's not quite enough.
I think Onyx's decision to dive that deep was not the best. They got a kill on the Andoryu, which is great, but they also needed to keep a closer eye on Chaknu because these Numenon Blasts are really messing with their positioning, and then they kept trying to force fight. Even Kyrie used Enhanced Sword to do damage rather than escaping when his health was on 10%. He could have definitely gotten out of that. So I don't really feel like Onyx needed to give that many kills over, but I think they're still in an okay spot, and hopefully this gives Omega a bit more momentum. Because they really need it.
I thought that this is actually a very interesting item choice from Kyrie. The very first item, Blood Wings. What did you say of that, Sadafa?
It's for the extra HP, because I think we are looking at Kyrie. He realizes, okay, my team has more than enough damage without me needing to go for something like a Genius Wand straight away. Survivability going to be a lot more important because you have a lot of heroes that can punish dive. Like both the Edith, the Lolita, even the Bane actually can kind of stun you the moment you jump in. So having that additional shielding is a little more value at this stage.
So not go for damage, but perhaps look for growth in the later stages of the game. That seems like something that Fnatic Onyx will want to go for. In the meantime, here in the middle lane, Fnatic Onyx is just going to be knocking down onto the tier 1 in the middle lane, while Smart Omega looks for alternative trade down in the bottom lane. They left Lutpi all alone to kind of deal with this, but he's hiding inside of the brushes. Doesn't seem like he's too interested in taking a fight until his fellow friend comes in. As you can see, they're pretty much just going to be pushing everyone else away. That's going to be a 4-man stun, allowing Lutpi to actually allow the rest of Fnatic Onyx to come straight in, but that doesn't look good at all. The Dominant Blast from Chaknu channels up, but it doesn't have the flicker to flicker in to get everyone stunned up.
I'm liking what we're seeing here. Omega looks like that momentum they got from the earlier fight did actually hold on a second here.
Immediately, the Keyboy was hoping that he'll be able to open things up, but it got completely taken out instead.
Onyx kind of underestimating their opponents a little bit here, and it is good to see Omega actually making proactive decisions across the map. I get the feeling the coach has talked to these players during the break.
Ukir, HP not looking that healthy, but Lutfi right now, he was hoping that he will be able to do a little bit more when it comes down to being able to bruise for his team. The rest of the members from Smart Omega is just going to be congregating right here onto the turtle. The Spear of Misery is just going to be landing us down. It doesn't seem like it's going to be much of a destruction, but in the meantime, it does seem like Ryota is going to go down before the Earth Shatter is going to be landing on anyone, while the Numenon Blast is only landing on the Kyrie, allowing them to buy a little bit more time before Kyrie deals enough damage. But alas, it is still a 2-man death from the side of Smart Omega.
Yeah, good spacing there from Onyx. Smart Omega, again, I do like that they're making these proactive plays. They zone out the turtle pit, get the objective without too much problem. But it was the retreat that they had to be the most careful of, because there's no reason that Onyx would stay that long and without trying to mount aggression on the objective if they didn't have a different goal in mind, that which being catching Omega while they're disengaging after claiming the turtle.
Smart Omega seems to like they have been playing disengage for the longest time ever. Like they don't really want to engage on their opponents, or they do not want to go all in, despite their draft requiring them to kind of pop their ultimates and hope for the best. In the meantime, Eternal Guard coming in from Fnatic Onyx, not exactly sure what is the main idea of expending that Eternal Guard. But to be fair, it's only 50 seconds until the Lord appears. So it seems like a statement from Fnatic Onyx that we don't want to fight, we want to wait for the Lord.
It can just be used as a measure of scouting to provide vision and make sure that Omega can't go for any aggro. And answer your question about Omega, like it feels weird that they're not trying to catch people because they have a comp where they want to burst their ultimates down. This is a counter-engage composition. They are very good at punishing Onyx when they're the ones jumping in and they're waiting for those opportunities. Yes, they could make catches with heroes like the Edith and Lolita, but since they seem to enjoy playing more as a 5-man unit, I think this is a bit more like accustomed to their gameplay.
Accustomed to their gameplay. It's kind of working on a kind of playing on a whim per se.
No, not really. I think it's going with what they're more used to. Because they've already made some proactive decisions, but it's not in team fights, it's more in macro, right? It's them deciding, okay, we're gonna push S5, take a free tower down bottom, okay, we're gonna group around the turtle pit, and then whenever Onyx engages, then they respond.
So, in the end of the day, what exactly do we want to see from Smart Omega? Because we have been mentioning we want to see them being aggressive, while in the meantime, they are also a counter-engage comp. It kind of seems counterintuitive for us to be able to mix aggression and counter-engage if they really want to play to their win conditions.
Oh, you absolutely can. You can play the map in a way that forces your opponent to fight
engage on you. Ah, okay, I get it. So that actually means that Chaknu have got a lot of things to bear. There's a lot of burden on him. He gotta have to open up the map enough. He gotta have to be the threat. He gotta have to make sure that Fnatic Onyx don't claim parts of the jungle or claims parts of the river. Is that right?
Yes, technically, but I don't think there's as much of a burden on Chaknu as you may think. Because the way that Smart Omega plays is together anyway, so I don't think they have to worry too much about that. Because it's not just Chaknu that can punish engages, it's not just Chaknu that can scout brushes, right? We do actually have Ryuta to help do that. Even Endoryu can kind of participate here and there. So, because Chaknu doesn't have to worry about protecting his team, he can do things like that.
Oh, super aggressive. We're just gonna be running it down onto Fnatic Onyx, and that is gonna be the Numenor Blast that lands onto Sans, activates onto the Flicker to ensure that he will be able to put quite a bit of distance from him to the opponents. And Doryu, though, he did manage to successfully take a kill down to the Lutby, even though he went for the Bravest Warriors, hoping that he can create even more gap. Keyboy doesn't seem too healthy as well. Fnatic Onyx, one by one, is just falling to the hands of Smart Omega, or rather, they are just kind of cycling all these damage.
Was there some miscommunication there? I don't know why CW blinked into his Sphere of Destruction when the rest of Onyx was running away, but okay, free kill for Omega, free Lord, and that was really nice. Chaknu actually taking the proactive decision to jump in, flicker, Numenor Blast, catch people, and then Omega just collapses. And this is what we want to see. There is adaptation. Omega is realizing that because of the composition and gameplay style of Onyx, they don't usually stick together. If you find someone, more often than not, they are alone.
Just from that one fight, that has allowed Smart Omega to almost break even when it comes down to the economical difference. They're only looking at what, close to 1,000 gold deficit, and I'm pretty sure that they will be able to do a lot more from that.
I think they can do a lot more with this. What they have to worry about is Onyx is going to adjust a little bit now. You can see that they're actually playing a bit closer together because they realize that Omega is taking advantage of them trying to open up the map individually. So Keyboy is trying to bait movement here, which they will.
Moskov is currently at the top lane. As such, Smart Omega understands that if they want to make a move, now's the time. But do note, it is global presence Moskov after all. They're gonna have to really watch out for the Spear of Destruction. In the meantime, Jom really putting himself out there, poking out Keyboy just so that the Lord will be granted a few more hits onto the turret. As such, he's just gonna be running right in. The rest of the members of Smart Omega, they're just waiting and biding their time, while Moskov is just working onto the top lane. This allows Keyboy to jump right in first. He sacrifices himself, allowing that kill. That is going to be a trade between Endoryu as well as Keyboy, but Lutby is going to be the next one onto the chopping block, retaliate with onto Ryota. Kyukir, Chaknu, and Jom, they understand that this is not the time for them to continue playing it out, while Moskov, he understands that he wants to join into the fight. Kairi, with a quick little enhanced chain, hoping that he will be able to do enough. Chaknu activates the bulwark, allowing himself to run a little bit further, but CW doesn't seem like he really wants to let him get away.
Onyx is attempting to break tempo from Smart Omega. You can see that they're experimenting with different timings of taking engagements because they realize that Omega is uncharacteristically looking for fights themselves. They were trying to bait movement, which they did, weren't quite prepared for how deep Omega might dive in, but then instantly adjusted to try and retake the fight when Omega had already used multiple resources. Omega still has an advantage here, even though the net worth isn't quite in their favor, but they need to make sure they are ready for further adjustments, because if they keep trying to go for the same strategy, that is what is going to bite them in the butt.
In fact, biting them on the rear is something that I believe that Fnatic Onyx would want to do, because it has been, I think, in the past 2 or 3 team fights whereby Smart Omega has quite literally been sticking together like a glue. But for now, Keyboy immediately with the way out Dragon onto Ryota. That is going to be a big amount, that's going to be a big kill for the side of Fnatic Onyx. As such, that is going to be the Numenor Blast from the side of Chaknu, hoping that he'll be able to create a little bit more of a diversion onto the side of Fnatic Onyx. But Smart Omega going down one after another. CW activates himself and being able to get 2 kills, allowing the rest of Fnatic Onyx to wipe out Smart Omega. It does seem like the top lane inhibitor turret is already destroyed, and Smart Omega with no one in around the home. Fnatic Onyx very easily clinches this victory.
A good attempt by Smart Omega and notable improvements made to their gameplay, but still not quite enough to pull the wool over the eyes of Fnatic Onyx, who will claim victory in game number 1